people with expired non-disclosure agreements. What's the juicy info you can now tell us? Had to sign an NDA in order to reforest an artillery range that was last active in the 1920s. Just in case we found some high-tech military secrets from 90 years ago. I wonder what was considered high-tech by the military all those years ago. Nothing wild. Worked for a luxury hotel that celebrities frequented when in the area. We had Cat Williams on property when he was still touring and popular. Apparently our housekeeping manager walked in to check how the cleaning of his room was going into. Her surprise, the lady who was supposed to be cleaning was kicked back smoking a blunt with the guy. Hilarity ensued and she was canned, but got a fucking story out of it at least. Sure, I was on the team that designed SpaceX's Starlink factory in Redmond, Washington that never got built. From start of project to finish it only took 4 weeks. A record. SpaceX also wanted a 50-foot deep hole in the middle of the building. But we weren't told why. Building was around 80,000 sqftl. Also, Elon likes to have a back door on all of his factories for which only he has a key so that he can secretly enter the building and watch the goings-on from a little alcove above the floor. If you have a Comcast voice remote and you say, "Make Robert happy," it will turn the TV to Doctor Who. There used to be a lot of hidden voice commands in the system. We had to take a lot of them out over time. But that one is still in there. Edit. A couple people have asked me who Robert is. He is one of the software engineers working on the voice remote system. As a proof of concept early on he put that in, and just never removed it. Edit 2. Some people are asking for another one. If you say, "Big Boss," it'll make your TV go to an empty page left over for the Minions movie and make your TV play a Minion noise. It seems they removed a lot of them, but that one is still there too. Just tested this, 100% true. Cox remotes do the same thing. Opiates are used for assisted suicide all of the time in countries that do not allow it. It's called the principle of double effect, when the primary intention is pain relief, and death is a likely side effect. Yeah, we studied this in bioethics. It's basically a nice way to phrase your way around what you're doing. Like, no, you are not administering a lethal dose of painkillers. You are administering the painkillers palliatively, and death is a likely side effect of those drugs in that condition. Patient on hospice. Clearly dying. Parameters for morphine include: do not give if respirations less than 12 per minute or heart rate below 60. Nurses can and do fudge this if it is apparent that the patient, even with these below the parameters, is not comfortable. They are already dying. What's the worst that will happen? I was given a near-fatal overdose of Tylenol as a toddler at a daycare called La Petite. The young worker walked away when I was on a diaper-changing table when I rolled over and fell off. I ended up breaking my femur and was understandably wailing my little cubby head off. She was afraid to get fired, so she kept feeding me painkillers until I stopped crying. Turns out that's a bad thing. Well, safe to say I spent over a week in the hospital and some time in a full-body cast. My legs got stunted just enough to make my legs just a bit shorter than my torso in portion. Medical bills were paid and I got $25,000 in an annuity. Plus the girl got fired but no prosecuted. My parents refused to press charges on her cause they believe in second chances and forgiveness. $25,000 is not enough if you have permanent effects. Damn. My old landlord building company paid all expenses for me to break my lease, move out and get all my possessions heat treated after I came back from study abroad. A bedbug infestation. They didn't want other residents to know if they threatened to sue they could get their stuff treated. I work on a popular show for Netflix that only finishes their episodes like 5 days before they're released. People seem to think they're batch completed and they have the entire show ready to go. Yeah, it sucks, but unfortunately that's actually quite common in Korea. Writers are writing the script based on audience reactions literally the day before and sometimes modify the plot to fit what's more popular. You can forget about normal work-life balance. It's common to work 48+ hours straight just to accommodate this ridiculous way of doing things. South Park will do this on purpose just to mock whatever the latest trend is in as timely a manner as possible. They literally copied Obama's 12th victory speech down to the correct people only a day or two after it happened. Those things expire? My NDA says it only expire when the information becomes public. It's simple, release the information publicly on Reddit so the NDA expires. Checkmate. All my NDAs come from working in film and video production, so there really isn't too much juicy shit, but the one thing that has always stuck with me is Jessica Chastain gets whatever the fuck she wants whenever the fuck she wants it. To add, totally forgot, Drake is terrified at owls. By the sounds of things, you could go on IMDb and fill it with info that people didn't know they needed. Like, as a random thought, Jennifer Aniston jumps every time she farts. Not an NDA, but I wasn't allowed to talk about our celebrity guests at the hotel I worked. Not working there anymore, so J.K. Rowling smokes cigars. Michael Bay is an okay dude. George Michael was a bit of a tosser. Robert Downey Jr. is incredibly down-to-earth. I worked the bar. He was very straightforward about him not drinking. Heston Blumenthal is really nice, even if a bit demanding. Unrelated, but my uncle has a non-compete that lasts 2 years past his death. It is 2 years past whenever he dies. His date of passing is not a known piece of data or plan. He can disclose post-mortem by leaving a letter in the lawyer's safe, like on Back to the Future. Mine isn't expired, but I don't care. They can come after me if they want. Honeymoon at a sandals resort and it went bad. Not like some people's where it involved rape, but personal belongings were destroyed. Kicked out of the room we got moved to after ours was no longer safe to stay in. That sort of stuff. The NDA says we are not allowed to acknowledge we were ever even on the island. Joke's on them. I had no interest in posting about it until they presented us with the NDA that said we couldn't. Thanks for the idea. I've heard about this from multiple people who have stayed at Sandals. They've signed NDAs and still continue to go to Sandals resorts because everything was comped. Disgusting. I catered a expensive wedding and Drake performed at the after party. That's right, Drake took a wedding gig. A lot of people don't realize that major musical artists do private gigs all the time, as long as the folks hiring them can pay their rate, which is usually the same or very close as they would get for playing an arena, festival, etc. Something to note here though is that the listed rate on the music booking sites is always negotiable. Back right before they blew up, I helped hire the Chainsmokers to play for a private party for about $7,000. Even though their initial asking was about $18,000. My friend signed one that has since expired. It had something to do with higher-ups in his company skimming off the top and making a shit ton of money before they got caught. My friend got involved because he told his manager that he found a ton of money missing from one transaction, or it hadn't been released yet or something like that. He was quite shook up about it for a few weeks. NDAs are void if they cover any criminal activity in the U.S., i.e. fraud and embezzling. I worked at a printing company outside D.C. in the late 90s, early 00. We did work for the government from time to time. We printed materials for the investigation into the Branch Davidian cult in Waco, TX. There was tons of aerial photos of the compound, and for some reasons David Koresh owned many Camaros. They were mostly old beat-up ones, but there were a few dozen on the compound. So you're telling me you have juicy info on a cult, but you're only mentioning some old cars that were there. They're Camaros, bro. We need to know the years. Were there any Firebirds or Trans Ams mixed in? How many had the dope-ass Phoenix on the hood?
Subscribe for more hot Reddit takes in your inbox.